concerns. Finance ministers from the G7, a group of the world's largest economies, are warning about the quote-unquote serious risks posed by cryptocurrencies, including Facebook's Libra. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin talked about it earlier in the week.
The Treasury Department has expressed very serious concerns that Libra could be misused by money launderers and terrorist financiers. Cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin have been exploited to support billions of dollars of illicit activity like cybercrime, tax evasion, extortion, ransomware, illicit drugs, human trafficking. Many players have attempted to use cryptocurrencies to fund their malign behavior. This is indeed a national security issue.
Joining us right now is the CEO of Ripple. He is Brad Garlinghouse. And Brad, it's good to have you on the show this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks. Good morning.
So first, let's explain Ripple, providing one frictionless experience to send money globally using the power of blockchain. You've got a growing global network. Your reaction to what you just heard from Steven Mnuchin in terms of the threats that cryptocurrencies represent?
I actually very much agree with the Secretary. I agree with what the President tweeted last week on these points. It's critical that as we think about these new technologies, really like any new technology, that they are thinking about regulatory frameworks. I do think that some in the cryptocurrency world have taken an approach of how do we circumvent governments, how do we circumvent regulation. But I think it's also clear that we shouldn't paint this with one broad brush. Any new technology can be abused in various ways. What Ripple is doing is enabling regulated institutions, banks. We partner with some of the largest banks in the world to help them more easily move money around on a cross-border basis. So I very much agree with the Secretary and the President on these points. And I think what we need to be clear about for the U.S., though, for regulatory policy, is that this isn't one big, broad brush, everything's the same, because then I think we risk stifling innovation here in the United States.
So do you not consider Ripple a crypto mechanism?
No, for sure. Ripple is a blockchain company. We use what I call a digital asset as opposed to a cryptocurrency.
Okay, digital asset versus cryptocurrency. Because the Journal this morning the Journal editorial board is out with an op-ed, and they're talking about cryptocurrency in an article titled "Cryptocurrency to the Rescue," writing that Facebook's cryptocurrency ecosystem needs to be fleshed out and potential weaknesses explored, but it could provide low-income Americans with a cheap banking alternative and perhaps put pressure on banks to lower fees. So will regulators and politicians allow it? Now, James Freeman is here from the editorial board, from the Wall Street Journal editorial page. Explain this.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Brad, I mean, I understand you partner with the banks, but for customers who maybe miss some of those free checking deals that they used to get, aren't some of these cryptocurrencies a way to allow easier, cheaper financial services than they're getting from banks? And of course, a lot of people aren't using banks, partly because of cost.
Yeah, look, I don't think in my lifetime the banks are going to go away. What we focus on is how do we make the banks more efficient, more competitive. You know, what we have seen happen here in the United States in some ways is actually around the regulatory framework for crypto is we've seen the U.S. government do things that is favoring Chinese-controlled technologies like Bitcoin and Ether as examples at the expense, frankly, of a U.S. company paying hundreds of millions of dollars in U.S. taxes and employing U.S. citizens. We can solve these problems using these technologies much the same way the earliest days of the Internet 25 years ago. The U.S. government created a framework that allowed companies to invest and build on top of these technologies. I think we should look at blockchain and crypto in very much the same way.
All right, we will leave it there. Brad, great to have you on the show. Thanks so much. We'd love you to come back and we have a longer conversation about this because we're all very interested in digital currency. Thank you, Brad.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Brad Garlinghouse joining us from Ripple.